Hello and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we'll talk about the Kivy language. The language that is basically provided by the Kivy developer in order to just provide the layout support and even the formatting of this widget, basically styling them and presenting them in the very useful manner. So basically that can be achieved by using the Kivy language, and similarly that can be also achieved by using this standalone Python code. So instead of writing all of this code in order to style this widget, we can do that using the Kivy language within a simple line of code, and we can just maintain that file outside this .py file. That means we can just create the new file in order to just store that Kivy language, and you can just do in any simple file, and you can just make use of that in this .py file that is in your current module, and you can just run it with ease just playing this button. And you could see how easy it is in order to just make use of that Kivy file and just run that module. So basically what you can do here is I'll just remove this vertical layout first. So let me just remove so that we are just stick to this horizontal box layout. So let me just print use the output that we just achieved the previous code. So for now, let me just remove this vertical box layout, as we'll just stick to this horizontal box layout example, and let me show you the output that we achieved in the previous code and in the previous lecture. So this was the code basically that was run, and this were rendered basically with the random color over the button. So let me just do it using our Kivy language. So in order to do that, what we're gonna do is we'll just create the new file that is a Python file in order to achieve the same, that is a box layout, that is horizontal box layout. Let me just go over here for the Python file, and let me say it should be kv box plot, that is box layout, not the plot. Let me say box layout over here, and let me just put the py extension that is automatically provided by the PyCharm, and let me just save this as kb box layout for now. So let's do some coding over here, that is our Python standalone code. So first of all, I'll just import the app, that is in order to just make use of this app module, and let me say app here. And next is the UI. So in order to just import the UI, what you can do is we'll just import from UIX module, that is this box layout. So we are really interested is in this box layout, so I'll just import this box layout class over here. And next thing is we'll just create the class, and in order to make the class, you'll just make use of this class keyword, and let me say kv, that is basically for our Kivy language, and let me say my horizontal box layout. So let's do this, and it should just inherit all the method of this box layout over here, and let's do something coding, that is only the pass. So if you just go in this box layout, and you could see we have done this much of code over here, but in the case of the Kivy language, we just have to just put here pass, and next thing is we'll just implement now for the vertical layout. So it is same for the vertical layout. So what you can do over here is I'll just say class first, and let me say kv, which is basically for the Kivy language, and basically for the vertical. So let me say box layout app. So this is for our app. So basically in order to just run this app, we have to just make use of the build function that we normally do while making all of our app, and basically we just return here, that is the kv, that is our box layout. So let me just make use of this box layout. So basically this was to just render or make use of this box layout that we did here. So if you see here that we make use of this all the layout over here, and just passing the range to the button, or just giving this attribute to the button. So instead of doing that, what we did here was just putting the pass, but the build method is required because this is the method that is going to render all of our elements, and that is basically using this app module or app class. So let's do this first, and next is just we'll make the use of the name equal main over here. So I'll just say if, so it should be over here, if name, so first should be name equal main, that is our, let me just say here main. And if the name equal main, what we're gonna do, we'll just create the app that is basically our kv layout, that is kv box layout. So it should be kv box layout. And here what we're gonna do is we'll just make use of this basically in order to run the app. So I'll just make these instances, and I'll just use this run in order to run our module. So we are done with this bunch of a code over here. So now it's time to just write the kivy code. So what is a kivy code? So if you have ever done coding in the HTML and a CSS, then you could easily grasp the knowledge of our kv file. So let me say first, that is kv box layout over here. So if you just see the naming convention over here, this is the Python file basically, that is kv box layout. So it should be same as kv box layout over here, but it should be all in lowercase. So just remember that, and put the Python that. And next is to put the extension of a kivy language, that is basically kv, and just put this kv and press ok over here, and your kv file is ready. So we have made the kv box layout, that is basically our kv file, and now it's time to just make use of this kv file, and we'll just use this. So before that, you can see in this box layout we have something that is a very large code, and here in this box layout we have a small code over here, and we also create an empty subclass that is for this box layout, which is basically our subclass of box layout. Then we create our app class here, and we have just used this build method that will just return a instance of an empty box layout class over here. And basically what we're gonna do next is make use of this kivy file. So let's go into this kivy file. So what is basically a kivy file? So if you have done any coding in the HTML tag before, so what is HTML tag? Basically HTML tag are the element that is name surrounded by the angular bracket. So basically if you made use of this button, that means you make this angular bracket first in order to just reference that button in the HTML code, and basically you just write a content over here, that is what the content should be, that is the giving the padding for the button, or color for the button, or background text, or anything for the button can be right down here. And basically the same goes for the kivy language. So you just use this tag name in order to reference, same as button over here, and you just write a content over here. So HTML tag normally come in the pair, that means you just have a starting tag name and you have the closing tag name over here. So basically first tag in the pair is a start tag, and the second tag is basically the end tag. And you could see over here it is basically for the paragraph here, and you could see over here that is it has a starting and the end tag, and the end tag is basically returned like a start tag, but it only contains the forward slash before the tag name. Like here you could see you have a tag name, and you can have a forward slash here for the tag name. So if you have done any CSS coding before, it is same as CSS coding. So let's first start with just giving the angular bracket and just referencing first, that is MyButton, and I'll just say MyButton at button. It should be button, not bottom. So button, and let's close this button, and let me give just the colon that is normally we give in the case of the CSS language too. So let's provide the indentation as this is a Python language. So I'll just put 4 indentation level here. So just remember we have to give the 4 that is level here, or the 4 space over here, to just maintain the indentation level. So let's define the color for this. So it should be by this color attribute, and you just pass the color, that is, let me say 0.8, 0.9, 0 and 1. So next is font size. So font size have this attribute that is font, and you just give the underscore and size, and it should be, let me say, 32. Just remember that every attribute contains an colon with it, so just remember, so colon should be given after an attribute. So you can just put over here, so it should be direct after this attribute. And we have now we have just given the color and font size to this button, so our button is ready. So next thing is we have a box layout. So basically if you go over here, we have a box layout, so just give the style for this box layout now. So in order to give the style, I'll just reference using this box layout, and just remember that because this is a class, that means this should be all in capital. That means basically we have a camel case here, and as before we'll just give the 4 space here, that is just count 1 2 3 4, and give the orientation, that is the orientation over here, and the orientation should be horizontal. So after that, next thing is we'll make use of this button. So here if you see here, that is my button. So if you see here, this button class was referenced as the MyButton. So basically now we can use the MyButton over here in order to reference all of these button. So let me go over here and just reference the button with the MyButton. Here I can just say MyButton, that is over here MyButton, and let me just put the text for the MyButton. So it should also have the indentation, that is 4 space. Just count the 4 space and just put the text, and let me say text would be button 1. And next is just give a background color, so it should be background color, and basically this attribute should exactly match over here. So you can just give this background, or it should be directly a background color. So just don't mistype any of this over here, and it should be colon after this any attribute, and just give the color, let me say 1001, which is basically for the red. And let me just define another button, that is basically for next button. It is the same way that you just reference using this MyButton for the button. So let me just go down here, give the 4 space, and basically it should be from here 1 2 3 4, and let me just define another, that is text here, and this text will be for this button 2. So let me say button 2 over here, and let's copy this background color over here, and let me just go down and paste it over here. And the background color for blue, basically now we have green, not a blue, so second would be for the green. I'll just say it's the color combination for the green. So let me just grab this button again, because we have a couple of more button, that is 2 more button, one for the blue and another for purple. So let me just go down here and let me make the indentation label. So first it should be exactly over here, and next thing is we'll just say button 3, and after that just give the color code as in 0 0 1 and 1, which is basically for the blue. And let me just copy this one more time, basically which is for our last attribute or a last button over here, and it should be button 4, and this should be the over here, that is 1 and 0 and 1 and 1. Basically it is a color code for the purple. And let me just give the one last over here, which is be our button 5. So let me just paste it down over here again, and in this last button I'll just say it should be button 5, and the next here should be our 1010, it should be 1001. So we have now 5 buttons. So we just save this code now, and basically so the important thing over here while using this kv language is the name over here. You can see kv box layout, that should be the exact name what we have used over here, that is kv box layout. So it is really important to know. So you can't just type here anything, and it should be just basically for the lowercase in the case of a kv file, but in the case of the python it can be the any camel case or any letter, but in the case of the kivy it should be the exact the name as you have over here as a module. So if you see here that we have a kv box layout, and it is also a kv box layout file. So just remember that, and basically we have here as a lowercase, and in the python you can have any case, that is camel case, or you can also have a uppercase in order to define the module. So name of the kv file is basically we have just defined over here, and you have to note that basically you just need to strip off the app part of the class. Basically you can just see here, that is when you just go over here, we have something that is a kv box layout for the app. So you need to just strip off the app part of our class, and basically that is over here if you see that is kv box layout. So that means what you can do here is we'll just say the class. So let me just give you a quick remind so how this can be performed. So basically if you see here, that is let me just go over here, that is part of the box layout. So if you just print this box layout, you could see the output, that is our button is rendered with this different color. And if you go in this kv box layout, we don't have any code that is going to just render this effect. So if you just go to this kv box layout, we don't have any code that is going to just render this button by using the traverse in our child. So if you just go to this kv box layout, we don't have any code that is going to just basically loop or traverse through the children that is maintained as a widget children by this build method. So basically we don't have that in the kv box layout over here, but what we have is basically kivy language. So kivy language does the same as over here. So that means what you can do is we can just make use of this kivy file in order to just make a widget, and basically it will also create us a tree structure, and in this tree we have a button, we have a box layout which contains multiple button and text and background as attribute for that button. Just remember one thing, if you just go to this kb box layout, that is basically our main file, and if you see here, that is we have an app here that is inheriting the app, basically the class that is inheriting the app, that is kv box layout should be exact the same, the name should be given to this kb file, that is kb box layout. So if you go here, this kb box layout is in the basically in the camel case, and if you just go over here in this kb box layout, it is basically in the lowercase. So that's the difference. You can just give the exact name, or you should just provide the exact name what you have just used here while just inheriting the app class should be exact the name as the file for your kivy. Just remember that and you are good to go. So let me just save this first and go to this run in order to just run this, and let me just go to this kb box layout in order to run this app. So let me just click here. So in order to run this code, what we need to do is just go to this run and run the module, and just make sure you select this kb box layout, which is our current module. So let me just click this, and you could see the same code, that is the same output that we did before. That is, we have a button over here, and basically you just are good to go with this code. So basically it will just do same thing that we did here for the box layout. So if you just print this box layout now, that is going over here, run and run the box layout, you could see the same. That is basically it will have the different color combination, but in the case of this box layout that we give here different color combination over here, if you could see here that we have a 5 basically button with a different random color over here. So that means we have just implemented the kivy language, and basically it is same as a css language. You just make use of this tag name and give the attribute that is basically a text background, and basically you also have this children over here, and basically box layout is the root node that is in the. So basically this box layout will be the root node in our tree, and all of these will be their children. So that means the children and basically the node are created, and it will just render using this build method which you have here. And just remember that you just have to have the same name that you just give over here for the kb box layout, that is the same module name. If you see here, we have a kb box layout and kb box layout over here .kb file. Just remember that, and we are good to go in the next lecture. Now if you just go to this run in order to run this module, and just click this basically our kb box layout, which is basically this current module, then if you just click over here, then you could see the same output that was basically rendered or that was output before while using the solo or standalone python code. So it was basically performed using this kb box layout. So it has our code that contains basically a box layout as a node, and all of these button will act as a children of that node, and you have a given attribute that is text and background color to each of these layout widgets that is maintained in our box layout. And with the help of this build method, you are just rendering all of these widgets in our console. So instead of doing this basically this line of code, which is basically the way of doing in the python, you can use the kivy language and just do the same thing using basically this bunch of code, and you can just have reusability over here. That means you can just make use of this file, and you instead of just removing or just maintaining this file, that is our python file, which can be very tedious if the code is very long, we can just go to this kivy file and we can just maintain some of the code over here. So what if I just want to add the new children? You don't have to just go over here and just change the code. That means you can just go in the kivy language, and you can just add another code. And adding the code or adding another widget in kivy language is really easy than just changing the code in the python if the code is very long or very lengthy in the case of a python. So this will be the wrap for this video. In the next lecture, we'll see about the float layout. So see you in the next one.